this walk through and a time lapse because Steve, he's like, we got to get something out, Jamie. I'm like, well, the best I can do is this, update of what the building looks like kind of thing. So that's what we're shooting for.
Okay. I'll pull it this afternoon. I'm starting Rabbi Davids' class. Yay.
Okay. Hey, okay. I'll keep you posted on the testing with shooting if you want. I don't know if you care, but
I do. We're good.
I will. Okay. All right. Thanks, Don.
You got it.
Talk to you later.
Thanks. Bye.
What's the percussion?
I wanted to ask about the White House, the press secretary there being pressed.
Yeah. How are you?
What's the percussion stuff behind you?
Oh, drums.
Talk to me, Don. This is something I don't know.
Do you play drums?
No, I play tuba. But yes. But you are a percussionist?
Yeah, I played drums when I was a kid. The drum set there is actually my second. They're electronic drums, so it's made by a company called Alesis, and they're kind of bumped up. They have nylon mesh heads, so they feel very much like drums.
Right, but they're electronic.
They're electronic, so I play them through computer software. I can also play them. I can get audio out somewhere. And turn them on. See. Let's see. Oh, I didn't plug them in. Sorry.
I didn't mean to cause trouble. I was just curious.
It's a little bit low right now, but So, I can then plug them into software, and I've got a bunch of other sounds. With the software that I use, I can change the kind of drums.
Right.
So
you can have a timpani right there in your room.
I absolutely can. I've also got
My God, look what's back there.
Collection of guitars, including my pride and joy. I always wanted an electric, and this one I picked up on eBay.
Look at that baby. Wow.
It's got these beautiful sort of inlays. And
where was that made?
This was actually made in Singapore or Indonesia. Yeah.
Indonesia.
But it's an American company called PRS. And I was shopping around, and it just has beautiful, beautiful tone. So.
And so do you belong to a garage band, or what do you do with this?
What do I do with it? We've got 4 minutes till class. This is my meditation. I play. I play in this software called Studio One. It's loading up.
Look at that. Look at that. My God, this is serious stuff.
It's definitely serious. Oops. So of course it's not.
It's not going to show off today.
It's being difficult.
So did you play in a band as a high school kid?
I did a little bit. Yeah, we had a band called Zebulon Pike, and nice, biblical, partially biblical name.
The Zebulon works, Pike not necessarily, but okay.
But Zebulon Pike was actually the guy who sort of set up Pike's Peak.
Oh, okay.
So that's where that came from. But I played drums in there, but I never learned how to play guitar. And then I was playing around with loops in this software.
Loops?
Yep. So actually that program I was going to show you.
Through the portal.
And isn't it all?
Right. Connecting to audio. Hi, people. People are coming on. Streaming live as I decide to choke just in time.
No choking in front of us, Rabbi.
Pardon?
No choking in front of us.
Yeah, I know. It's a bad form. I apologize. I apologize. Let's see what we have here. Okay. There we go. Oh my God. There we are. Merle, you're down lower. Last week you were on the top row and you've slipped. I hope that doesn't mean anything.
You can move people around, Rabbi.
No, God forbid. I never, as a rabbi, I don't manipulate.
It would only be for your screen. We'd never know it.
Okay. All right. Okay, we're going to give it.
I'm on the top on my screen.
You're always on your own screen. You're always at the top next to the host.
That's a pleasure.
Yeah. We'll give it until 1 more minute and then we're going to plunge right in, okay? We'll plunge right in. I hope everyone is having a beautiful day.
It's gorgeous here.
Yeah. I did my required walk today and I had a vest on, went out at 9 in the morning and I thought it would be like cold and the vest came off very quickly. It wasn't cold at all. It was quite pleasant.
Good.
Quite pleasant.
Rub it in, Rabbi. Rub it in.
Oh, I forgot. No. Listen, I have a daughter who lives in New York, right? So she's the one who's suffering right now.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu la'asok b'divrei Torah. Okay. And I know that Don Levy is somewhere off invisibly monitoring everything. And I just want to say thank you to him, to Hannah Gold, always for the support. And most importantly, I keep getting emails from you. Thank you. I enjoy that. I love it with your questions, with your comments. Terrific. So we're going to get started today. We are going into our next midah, but we're going to do a little bit of review, and we're going to see how this works. Okay. And the midah that we're going to talk about today is nope, that didn't work. Let me try again. Yeah, there we go. Hakarat Hatov. Okay, so let's just back up a little bit because there are words that are very, very important. The first word is midah, and midah is a soul quality. We talked about this for the past several weeks. We have huge numbers of, here's the plural, midot, and the purpose of Mussar is to help us learn how to live with, train, exercise our midot. So if someone says, oh, did you study a little bit of Mussar? Yeah, we studied the Jewish ethical tradition as in this, the Torah of Mussar, and we learned that people have many midot, many. The fact that we're only going to do 4 or 5 over the course of these 6 weeks does not conceal the fact that there are many. Hakarat Hatov as a midah, as a soul value, means acknowledging the good. Hakarat Hatov, acknowledging the good. We go back a bit. We talked about midah, a soul trait. What sets us apart from every other human being is not that we have this midah and they don't, but rather how this midah functions inside of us, how we do the midah. And that's why Mussar is very much into discipline, is very much into training, and very much into acknowledging that sometimes a midah should be kept at a minimum in our soul, maybe like anger, but sometimes it should be kept maximally. But Mussar, very much following the teaching of Rambam, of Maimonides, who was, after all, following Aristotle, speaking of the golden mean, we should try to be in balance. We should try to be in balance. But there is a problem. There is the Yetzer Hara, and there is the Yetzer Tov. Okay. Mussar, and as a matter of fact, all of Talmudic tradition says that we have forces within us that try to push us one way or the other. So we have the evil inclination, Yetzer Hara, that tries to push our acts toward things which are unseemly. And then we have the Yetzer Tov, which tries to push us to do good things. As people looking at Mussar, we have to be the masters of the Yetzer. We have to be able to control impulses which cause us to want to do things which are unseemly. And we also have to monitor forces, the Yetzer pressures that try to make us do things which are good. By the way, you asked, what was my master's thesis about in rabbinical school? I'm glad you asked. It was a comparison between rabbinic psychology with the Yetzer Hara, the evil inclination, the Yetzer Tov, the good inclination, and classical Freudian psychology. And I'm not sure whether I said anything intelligent, but they allowed me to be ordained. So that's good. That's fine. So each one of us deals in an individual way. Last week we talked about anava, about humility. And we said, we should keep 2 pieces of paper in our pockets, in our purse, one that says you're but little lower than the angels, and one that basically says you are nothing but corrupt nothingness and unworthy. And which one are we? And that's for the individual person who cares about Mussar to determine for themselves one way or the other. I should point out, and this is real. Anava also wants us to be willing to let go of life. Do you remember in the end of Deuteronomy when Moses was struggling about, I don't want to die, I want to live, let me live, I want to go into the promised land. Moses struggles, he wants to live. The masters of Mussar believe that in dealing with our own lives, we also should be willing to let go when the time has come. That's a very serious comment. To be willing to let go and to say, I am ready to die. Remember, Anava always speaks about pulling back and leaving room for others. And the Mussar teaching of Anava extends that to life itself. At a certain point in time, we should be willing and able to pull back and say, okay, I've reached the end of my life. Now, we are going into Hakarat Hatov. Next, Midah. So now we can say, as new students of Mussar, we have 2 Midot that we have conquered. That's terrific. I was afraid to teach this one. I chose it, but it's troubling. The Midah says it is part of our ethical behavior to recognize the good wherever we look. Without going into contemporary politics, this is tough. Tough. What does one do with the excellent achievements carried out by people whom we regard to be morally or ethically corrupt. The midah of hakarat hatov says we should always be able to recognize good even when it arises out of the most awful places. So I decided to have fun today, and I hope that we're going to have fun. I am now going to list some interesting things. Hirohito. We may remember Hirohito was a marine botanist who in fact made some serious scientific discoveries as a marine botanist. Al Capone. This gets tough. Al Capone opened what was probably the first public soup kitchen in America. Al Capone. Saddam Hussein. Saddam Hussein initiated free compulsory education in his country. Charles Dickens, now we're flipping to the other side. Charles Dickens was a publicly recognized cruel father who was a serial abuser of women. Isaac Newton was described by contemporaries, I love this list of adjectives, mean, cruel, ruthless, and vindictive. Isaac Newton. Okay, James Watson. James Watson, who of course is connected with the discovery, the development of DNA, was a seriously committed racist. James Watson, the developer of the understanding of DNA, an open, proud racist. So since I was in Watson's, I figured I'd move to Thomas Watson. You know who Thomas Watson was Thomas Watson? He was CEO of IBM. Thomas Watson utilized the computer technologies of IBM to help the Nazis develop their programs by which to track and to murder Jews. Thomas Watson. That would, of course, cause all of us to throw out all of our IBM machines. There have been public apologies. IBM has apologized. This is not, and maybe, you know, like urban legend, truth. Watson, IBM used their technology, handed it, sold it to the Germans, the Nazis, who used it to track down and murder Jews. And Watson knew it was happening. If I mention Thomas Jefferson, we don't have to go into that. We all know about Thomas Jefferson. But do you know about President Grover Cleveland? Grover Cleveland, so far, is the first president who was ever elected, defeated, and then won the presidency again. Okay? I mean, so far, he's the only one. Again, we're not entering politics. But as a town official, Grover Cleveland acknowledged that he raped a woman and fathered an illegitimate child. It was after that that he was elected twice to the presidency. Hugo Boss. I have some Hugo Boss stuff. Does anyone else have Hugo Boss stuff? A little bit of Hugo Boss. Hugo Boss designed the military uniforms for the Nazis. I'm not going to throw out my Hugo Boss tie. There it is. And then, just to finish it all up, I will simply mention Henry Ford. Okay, now, here we go. What do we do with the midah of Hakarat Tov with people such as those on the list that I distributed? Steve Miller, question.
My question is, we're supposed the midah itself is only to recognize the good, which I think is saying you shouldn't prejudge anybody or anything in any given circumstance. And be honest, I don't think it means, what you do with that is different, whether you then allow a statue to be built, a school to be named, how you deal with the balancing for each person is an entirely different issue than being told to see the good. And it doesn't even say don't see it in context, as far as I can tell.
Hakarat Tov is a statement that we should recognize and give thanks for the good wherever it emerges from and in whatever circumstance. The major focus of Hakarat Tov is not dealing with what we would call cancel culture. It is, folks, we need to be awakened to the good things that exist in life. There's a Hebrew phrase in the prayer book, we use it a lot, Tov lahoda. I'm almost, but not totally committed to singing. Tov lahodot Adonai. Good to give thanks. Good to give thanks. This is something which we ought to do. Hakarat Tov means recognizing the good. Modeh ani lefanecha. I give you thanks. We say it every morning. Giving thanks. Risa Davids, why does hara and tov without ha? Okay, because I am a pedant. The Talmud says Yetzer hara and Yetzer tov. There is no such thing as Yetzer hatov. How important is that in the course of Jewish thought? Minimal. It's just one of those things. So it's Yetzer hara and Yetzer tov. By the way, just as a simple kind of a thing, Robert wants me to share my rabbinic thesis with you, and he wants a PDF. Robert, I wrote this before there were PDFs. It doesn't exist on PDF. And the reality is, and we're not going to go into it only because I love the topic, the rabbis really believed that we had a Yetzer hara and didn't really believe that we had a Yetzer tov. So the Yetzer hara is the id in Freudian psychology. It is the id. We're not going to go into that. Sign up for another course. We'll talk about it then. Okay, now we have to give thanks. Marinus, who is the great teacher of Mussar and from whom I have tried to learn something, said the following. This is a quote. If you've lost your job, but you still have your family and health, you have something to be grateful for. If you can't move around except in a wheelchair, but your mind is as sharp as ever, you have something to be grateful for. If your house burns down, but you still have your memories, you have something to be grateful for. If you've broken a string on your violin and you still have 3 more, you have something to be grateful for. By the way, I asked Yitzhak Perlman whether the story, you know this one about he was playing and a string broke and a string broke and he kept on playing. Urban legend, it never happened. at least Perlman says it never happened. Okay. I'd like to share with you a difficult story. Risa and I have a friend who is seriously along in ALS. She is totally living only in the wheelchair. The wheelchair is electronically equipped so that she can move her head a little to the right, a little to the left, and uses that to create emails and to be in touch with people. She is a woman in her 60s. She knows what the projected future is. We are in contact with her frequently. The first time we reached out to her when we learned about the ALS, we were hesitant. Forgive me. We were hesitant. We didn't know what it would be like. And this woman stepped forward rhetorically to comfort us. She gives thanks to her life every single day. She has become one of the major fundraisers for ALS research in the country. She sponsors marathons. She does a whole variety of things. When Risa and I took ill with COVID, she was in touch with us, hoping that we were feeling better. She is totally able to embrace the midah of hakarat hatov. Many of us spend a lot of time talking about what we don't have or worrying about we don't have. Folks, what we don't have is limitless. I'd like you to hold on to that phrase. What we don't have is limitless. If we spend our time looking at what is missing, we will be full-time occupied. That's why in Pirkei Avot it says, Ezehu Ashir Hasameach Bechelko, who is the person who is really wealthy? The person who is able to look at his or her life and say, this is good. I am satisfied with what I have. I am satisfied with what I have. I'm going to ask you a question. And we'll see how we can deal with it. We'll go into the chat. Have you ever had an experience of loss that led to a gain? If someone wants to speak, put your name in the chat and we'll try to do that. Have you ever had an experience of loss which led to a gain? Merle, do you want to share with us, please? Yeah.
I have hidden disabilities. And my family has been amazing, all but maybe one person. Our friends have been amazing, all but one person. But I think the gain is, because I have to walk with a walker or a cane, is when I'm working at camp, the kids, the campers get it. And if I have to leave my walker somewhere to walk up some steps or get, to a point where I can't take it, the kids get it. And without even having to be asked, they're there for me. And And
Perfect.
that to me is the gain, because they understand that even though I'm mentally and physically look fine and act fine, but I need that help to get places.
That's a beautiful example. We call that Yerida for the purpose of Aliyah, a loss that leads to a gain, if you will. I see Devorah Hyman.
When my first marriage came to an end, it took me a long time to get past that loss. And part of that was going to my synagogue all the time, regularly. And I met someone there who I have now been married to almost 17 years. So that loss of that relationship gave me the opportunity to have another one. So I'm very grateful for that.
Beautiful. Thank you. Do we have another couple of examples of loss which opened the door for gain? Anyone else want to come in? Anybody else? Okay, we'll let that go, but those are beautiful examples of being able to recognize good. So I have a story from the Talmud. Okay, I know that Kelsey, as I watch Kelsey, she likes stories, right, Kelsey? So we're going to tell a story. It's a story about Rabbi Akiva. You may have heard this, maybe not. Rabbi Akiva was traveling from one town to another. And he was traveling, you have to buy the story, with a rooster, a donkey, and a lamp. You got that? A rooster, a donkey, a lamp. He's trying to get to the town, but the journey is a little bit longer than he thought it would take, and he has to spend overnight in a field knowing that he'll be able to get to the town the next day. But he camps out, and a strong wind arises and blows out the lamp. Next, a weasel came and killed the rooster. And Akiva apparently was spending overnight in a zoo because a lion then came and ate the donkey. So he was traveling with a rooster, a donkey, a lamp. He wanted to get to the town. He had to spend overnight outside of the town, and disaster struck. He was despairing. He had not mastered the midah of hakarat hatov. The next morning, he struggles into the town, which had been burned to the ground. Apparently, a gang had moved through the fields and attacked the town. They had passed right by Rabbi Akiva's bed place. If the rooster had been alive, they would have found him. If the donkey had brayed, they would have found him. And if his lamp has, David, you're laughing. Come on. If I'm just telling the story, it's in the Gemara. Come on. If the lamp had been lit, he would have been metaphoric toast. This Talmud tells the story so that we understand that even terrible things that afflict us can have certain elements of goodness. It is possible. And all that you're laughing because it's wonderful, David. Thank you. Okay. All that the midah of hakarat hatov doesn't ask us to be a Pollyanna. It doesn't ask us to say, oh, it doesn't matter what's going on. It's all going to work out well in the end. Thank God a piano fell on my head because something good may yet happen. No, not to be a Pollyanna, but to say, look, in life, is it possible that even when horrible things happen, some good might be present? How many blessings are we expected to utter in a day, according to Jewish tradition? How many? How many?
613 or something?
No, that's way too many.
100.
100.
Okay, Risa said 100, and you get
180.
100, 100,
180.
100.
100? Okay.
Okay, but if you want to do 180 by me, it's okay. Now, you're supposed to say 100 blessings a day. Does God need our blessings? Do we do this to please God? Better. Are we still supposed to say 100 thank yous a day if we don't believe in God? Some of us don't believe in God. Some of us don't believe that God listens or hears. What's the point under the midah of hakarat hatov? What's the point of saying thank you 100 times a day, setting aside that it probably would annoy God? Setting aside that it would annoy God. What's the point? Who needs us to say 100 times a day, thank you? Merle, I'm going to let you go because you bothered to put something in the chat and it's good. Actually, Merle, every time you put something in the chat, it's good. But go ahead.
We do it for ourselves to show God that we care about ourselves, or that we are grateful for what God has given us to care about ourselves. That's it.
We need to say thank you. God doesn't need us to say thank you. What does the ability to say thank you do to us? What does it do? What does it do? Susie. Susie, you have to unmute. Susie Giambattista, unmute. She's not going to unmute. Are you going to unmute? No, we're going to pass on. Lisa Beth. Oh, you did it. You did it.
I did. Now I forgot what the question was. Oh, why do we need to give thanks? Is that what the question was?
Why do we need to say thank you?
Well, for me, I need to thank God every time I'm aware of something that has happened that, first of all, I never thought would have happened, that I didn't ask for it to happen. Like, it's for me to hear that I'm grateful, that I'm grateful.
What does it do to you?
Oh, it makes me feel so good. It makes me feel like I'm a good person. It makes me feel that
And we know that's not true, Susie, right?
I know, but it makes me recognize that I'm a good person. It just, it's affirming is what it is.
Lisa Beth.
I think it's just a matter of perspective, really. It gives us perspective.
I had a note here from Sam Etzioni. Sam, where are you? Sam, you're here. There's someplace. I don't see you yet. Oh, I see a thumbs up from Sam. But Sam said, you can't feel bad when you're sitting in a grateful feeling. Very interesting. Very nice. Oh, okay. Sam has apologized, but at least he sent it up. Now, one of you, Miriam?
Yes, I wanted to say that
the feeling of gratitude, which is an emotional feeling of kind of a warmth and goodness literally going through your body, will therefore help you physically and physiologically. This is not my thought. This is the thought of many, many doctors who say that you literally feel physically better when you're putting your head in an emotional good place. It's something so obvious, but so true.
I think that's great. Thank you, Miriam. I see Doris. Doris, yes.
Yeah, I'm here. I was going to say, I think it frees you from anxiety. It relaxes you. You know you've done the right thing. It's not important that you say it. It's important that you feel it and experience it for yourself.
Yes. Yeah, just thinking about it. What if you get up in the morning, and this is part of the discipline of Mussar, and commit yourself to finding ways to say thank you during the day, even though you've had a lousy week or month or year? What if you do that? Miriam says it's healing, and that there's good medical evidence that people who can look even in the midst of really bad situations can help you heal. We had a tough question, and I don't want to omit that. God forbid we've lost a child. How does one do hakarat hatov when we have been hit by real tragedy, real, permanent, ugly, awful tragedy? How does this midah work? How do we make it work within the Mussar system? Okay, Merle says it's how we've gotten through last year. Sam says tragedy can be humbling, and so there's a link between hakarat hatov and anava. I like that. What about some of the rest of you? Lisa, I want to see if I can see somebody else who hasn't okay, anyone else? Keep the conversation going. Okay, Lisa Beth.
So for those of you who know me well, know that I lost my brother and sister within 9 months of each other. And I have to say that it took many, many, many years to get to this point where this kind of discussion wasn't theoretical and sort of sounded good, but was very, very hard to actually practice in reality. So I love the concept, and I'm grateful for my blessings every single day. So I'm not dismissing the conversation, but when you are faced with real, as you said, permanent, deep loss, it's hard to look around at the world and see, lovely, good things.
Let me just try to apply, Lisa Beth, the teachings of Mussar to what you just said. What would Mussar expect of you in this horrible, nightmarish reality?
I mean, based on what you're suggesting, which I totally believe in, would be to look around and say, and yet I'm healthy, and yet I have a loving partner, and yet my community embraced me, which in fact I did do, but I think that it's hard to move from the theoretical to the practice when you're in that state.
And I want to believe that actually Mussar is cognizant of this possibility and reality. Remember what I said, that it's all a continuum. Every single midah is a continuum. It goes from one to the other, from the low to the high. Mussar would look at the tragedy you live with and say that if you are at the extreme of minimal hakarat hatov, that's reasonable. That's reasonable. It doesn't want Pollyanna. It will say, even in the midst of pain, sometimes you'll see a sunrise and it'll feel good without changing any of your reality. And Miriam would say, that's a good thing, because that's a little bit of healing. But God forbid that Mussar would say, in the midst of a nightmare, you are supposed to say, oh, I hear the tinkle of the ice cream truck. That's a good thing. No. Mussar is very real when it says each midah is to be handled from one side to the other. Devorah. Sometimes it's not tragedy, but depression that impacts you. Do you want to talk a bit about that, or let that stand, or what would you like to do?
Well, years ago, I had a really bad case of depression. So bad that I contemplated suicide. And the one thing, I was divorced and I had 2 teenage children, sons, and I did not want them to find me. That was because as a diabetic, it would have been easy. But I couldn't do that. And it was my children that kept me from doing anything now I now think of as stupid, but at the time it seemed very, very much part of the possibility. And I don't know how Mussar would have helped me then. I did have a therapist, and I'm glad that I don't have to worry about that now, because things have improved substantially. So, but the cloud that sits over your head, it's very, very hard to see past that. And I've since had a rabbi whose comments were talking about there are miracles around us every day that we don't see because of clouds and other things. And since then, I try to remind myself the blessings for every day, the nisim b'chol yom, the miracles, the daily miracles are so true. So if you just think about 1 or 2 of those, and I didn't back then, that was it, but it's just something that I'm glad I got through, but I'm really glad that there were people there to help me. And I understand why when somebody does kill themselves, why people feel guilty for not having been able to stop it. Because I've had friends.
Thank you. Thank you for that. I was part of my walk this morning. I walked through Muscle Beach in Venice, and that's all I can ever do is walk past. I don't go in and engage, which brings me to Mara's warning. You're going to wonder how I'm going to connect this, Mara, right? But to be able to function in Muscle Beach, you don't suddenly walk in and start pumping serious iron. It is a lifetime of practice and of discipline. So Mara, with that as an introduction, would you like to offer what is a really important point? Really important.
Good.
Yes, that for any Mussar trait to be somewhat automatic in your life takes a very long period of practice. And I think of the trait of patience, which is a challenging one for me.
That's what comes up next, Mara. We're going to do, just be patient. We're gonna but patience is coming up next.
And I really needed to practice for months and months and months and months. I needed to have a reminder on my wrist to look at. And it was only after a very, very long time that I realized that I was able to stop the match from lighting when I thought something was taking too long, or I was irritated with someone. I started to have a voice in my head saying, wait, do you need to respond in that way? Is there a different way I can respond? And I found it very, very helpful. And I think that's true about finding the good as well. You really need to train those muscles, and it takes a long time. And if we're impatient with that process, we don't get to reap the benefits.
That, from my perspective, Mara, is an incredibly important gift to us today.
Mara from Deborah.
It is a very important gift. Whether it's anava, actually, I've been practicing anava. I think I'm one of the greatest anava practitioners. No, that won't work, will it? But you practice not when, God forbid, you're in stress. But that's why the whole idea of, for 30 days, wake up in the morning and decide what trait you'd like to work on for these 30 days. Let it be anava, let it be hakarat hatov, so that, God forbid, when, God forbid, we're in a horrible situation, hakarat hatov isn't something foreign or strange that you suddenly pick up and expect to work, or with savlanut, with patience, which we'll get to. Beautiful point, Mara. Thank you. Thank you. Really, really important. Okay. I'm going to say something which sounds very technical. Gratitude is, oh, Howard, you had your hand up. I saw your hand. Yes, is that so?
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I didn't want to derail your train of thought there. Relative to this subject of, tragedy and how do you go on, it makes me think about my own experience. I mean, when I was working on my PhD thesis, which was about almost 60 years ago, I used to have talks with my thesis advisor, who happened to be a man who was a survivor of Auschwitz. He had spent a good part of a year at Auschwitz working in the, what he called cleaning up. And he happened to, there was a time when he was really entering into a period of a very somewhat dysfunctional depression that had set in after he had gotten himself somewhat established in his career. And he came to me one day and he told me, he said, I have to tell you a story. And he said, when I was walking to work today, I encountered a man, and he said, why are you so sad? Cheer up, things could be worse. So he said, well, so I cheered up, and sure enough, things got worse. And that was his story. That's what he had to say.
Oh, but you got your PhD anyway, right?
He went on to be a very successful, it was continued his success. He worked his way out of it. His daughter is a successful physician in Boston. He has a number of successful students. He worked his way out of it. I don't know how, but he did. Maybe a sense of humor is part of it.
Maybe a sense of humor. But again, the Muscle Beach and Mara's comment, these midot can be worked on like your biceps, but they have to be worked on. They have to be exercised. For them to function in your life, it's not simply a matter of saying. Gratitude isn't performative. Would someone like to translate that into modern English? Gratitude isn't performative. What is that saying? What is that saying? I need help. Come on, David.
It says, I believe, that gratitude is first an internal feeling that it may be performative by writing a thank you note, say, but that's not the important part of it. The important part is feeling the gratitude.
Yes, thank you. Excellent. Anyone else want to jump in on gratitude isn't performative? I see Merle.
You have to work on it. It just
Yeah.
doesn't, you just don't wake up and it's sort of like doing a mitzvah. You can't just wake up and decide, okay, what am I going to be grateful for today? It just sort of has to be in you and develop.
Susie?
I think, can you hear me?
Yes.
I think gratitude for me is spontaneous. For me, when I'm spontaneous about being grateful, it shows all over me. I don't think about it. I don't think about saying the right thing, or I don't think about going and getting a thank you note. I mean, I've done those things, but the gratitude that means the most to me is the gratitude that is truly spontaneous. And there's both kinds.
Okay, thank you. Miriam.
I love that expression, Rabbi. Gratitude is not performative, because gratitude leads to performance. Gratitude leads to action. It leads to the mitzvah. When you do feel grateful, and as Suzanne said, it's spontaneous, but no, it's not quite that spontaneous. You have a reason to feel grateful. And if you acknowledge it, instead of ignoring it, if you literally acknowledge it to yourself, to another human being, I'm so grateful for. Personally, I'm grateful for waking up in the morning at my age. I'm grateful for being vertical. For me, Diana, to be vertical. But to say nothing of walking painless and painless at 94, I'm beyond grateful. But I love the idea that gratitude, like David Trainer said, gratitude leads to performance. I love that idea.
I think that, I mean, we are doing good things here. The midah, the soul value of hakarat hatov, recognizing good things, being able to be grateful, has to be awakened within us. That's the task. And Mara wants us to know that it doesn't happen easily or automatically. When Susie said she's spontaneously grateful and happy, you know, I agree and I accept that it's spontaneous, but I would suspect it's also learned, that it is something which you did and found reinforced and it grew in your life. And we have to learn to be awakened to the good and to give thanks. God doesn't need us to give thanks. I know without going into names that there are those who are studying with us today who have only recently gone through serious pain, serious fear, serious illness. You can't expect someone like that to jump into, boy, am I grateful. What Mussar wants us to do is to let Hakarat HaTov be one of those values which we practice, we get the bicep growing, and when we're in distress, the muscle memory of that value can be helpful. And that's okay. That's where we have to go.
Rabbi?
Where? Yes.
Could I say one thing about that? As you know, Harvey and I had COVID earlier in January, fortunately a mild case, but I recall in the middle of the night when I woke up and I didn't know if this was going to get worse or not, that I spent time meditating on Moda Ani, because I thought it was an important time to be able to say how grateful I was for everything. And it provided me with the calm to work my way through that evening and that night.
There is a television broadcaster who says, and now the last word will be given to, and it is with joy. I give Mara the last word for today. That is a beautiful example of the muscle memory of a midah, which is deployed at a time of stress and is a source of strength. Couldn't be better. Next week, if you can hold off, next week, patience. We will get to patience as the next value. Savlanut. Have a, may I be the first or last or whatever to wish you happy Groundhog Day, and have a great week. I love you. I love what we're able to do together. This is awesome. Thank you very, very much.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.